I need to think about it is the worst objection that you can get in sales, and it's the one that costs people the most money. So in this video, I am going to break down the I need to think about it objection step by step by step. To firstly discover how can we even overcome this, right? How can we even overcome the I need to think about it objection, right? How can we overcome it? How can we prevent it? What does it mean? And essentially, why does it come up? Okay, so I'm gonna just break this down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. So firstly, I'm gonna cover what does it mean, why it is a smoke screen. I'll touch on that in a minute. Why it comes up, how we can prevent it from coming up, how we can cut off the exits. I'll go into more detail about that. How we can use and dig up other people's words to overcome it. And then I'm just going to show you the key component to handling any objection. Okay, so let's get stuck into this. So I want you to understand a bit more about I need to think about it. Now, what does it mean? Effectively, it means that they are putting off the decision. Okay, now I might as well tie this in with that actually. So why does the I need to think about objection come up? Right, it comes up for two reasons, and really it only comes up for one reason when you really think about it, but it's either fear or money. Okay, so fear and money are two, they're closely tied, because someone could have a fear of investing the money, but what it means is a fear, the reason that it comes up for fear is because that person might have a fear of investing the money and not getting the result. Okay, so if you're selling, fat loss coaching, that person could have invested into coaching before, they could have invested into like a weight loss program before, it hasn't worked for them because obviously, they didn't have the right program and they've wasted their money. So the reason that they feel like they need to think about it this time is because they've invested in something before, hasn't worked, and they're like, oh, is this going to work for me again? Or is this even going to work for me in the first place? So that's where the fear comes from, okay? And from a financial aspect, if there's no fear, if they know that it can work for them, the only reason that they wouldn't actually invest is due to the money. Okay, so it's they've either had like a bit of sticker shock, or they might feel uncomfortable investing in themselves, and it all comes down to their belief around if they can actually make this work and if they're going to get the desired outcome from it. Okay, now I need to think about it is not the objection, right? It's a smoke screen. Okay, now what does a smoke screen mean? Okay, a smoke screen is basically something that someone will put in front of another objection to prevent you, or because they don't want to tell you the actual objection. Okay, now your prospects aren't sat there thinking, how can I create a smoke screen for whoever you are on the sales call with them? It's just natural. It's because they feel uncomfortable saying what they actually mean. Okay, now I need to think about it is always a smoke screen for finances. Okay, there's no other reason that people need to think about something. Okay, it's to do with finances, and people will dress it up as something else. They'll dress it up as I need to just have a think about it. I need to figure out if this is right for me. The reason that they need to think about it is because of money. Okay, now I'm gonna just show you how we can really cut off the exits and cut off the potential avenues that people can go down from giving you this objection just later on in the video, but I just want to give you an understanding of it before we really get into it. But when I go over cutting off the exits, a lot of this stuff will really click for you and you'll be like, okay, right, I know how to handle this objection. Okay, but anyway, back to it. So with a smoke screen of I need to think about it, what that 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, it's the finances. That is why they need to think about it. Okay, and if whenever anyone ever says something to you like I need to think about it, you need to automatically go, right, financial objection, how can I pull that out to them? Okay, so what I like to do, right, okay, so let me grab a different pen. Right then, let's hope this one works. Okay, it does. Okay, so what we want to do is there's a number of ways that you can actually find out if it's a smoke screen. So number one is to do the triple bind. Okay, I'll get on to that in a minute. So we want to do the triple bind first. Okay, we we basically just want to, how do I illustrate this? We basically want to get rid of the barrier. Okay, now a lot of people will teach the handle to this objection being oh, what do you need to think about? Or should we book a follow-up call? And then they do like a fake follow-up call and then they try to find out the objection. Personally, not a fan, because asking someone, oh, what is it that they need to think about? I don't mind that. I don't like doing the follow-up call tactic because I just don't personally like it. The two ways that I would handle this objection is, number one, the triple bind, which I'm gonna go over shortly, or probably in a minute. And then the second way is to get rid of the barrier, okay? Now, when someone gives you this objection, right, firstly, the number one thing we need to find out is what is the actual objection. Because like I've said to you previously, I need to think about it on its own is not an objection, okay? Because when you actually consider the logistics of them thinking about it, there's something that they're thinking about, okay? And a line that I always like to use is, I always like to say to the person, okay, that's perfectly fine. Now, if you don't mind me saying this, when it comes to making decisions, it's not a case of time, it's a case of information. More time will not make a decision, more information will. What sort of information do you feel like I can give you that would help you in making your decision, okay? Because that's going to pull out what they actually need more information on, whether it's the price, whether it's like a certain detail of the program. Because ultimately, you need to remember that when someone gets off a sales call, them spending time thinking about it does not lead to them buying. And another thing to remember, and this is something that I was exposed to very early on, is that when you get onto a sales call with someone, if they get off the call, they're not going to be sat there like, and they're not going to be thinking about your program, right? I need to think about it is just a smokescreen to get off the call to then ghost you, okay? Because of something, because of money or fear, okay? Now, I'm going to go over the triple bind shortly because it'll make more sense when I do that. But before I go over that, I want to essentially go through why it comes up, okay? So when it comes to I need to think about it from a money perspective, let me get my other pen. Cargo trousers, best invention ever. So it comes from sticker shock, or FOI, FOF. Okay, so when it comes to the I need to think about objection, the reason that it comes up from a monetary perspective is sticker shock. Okay, so for those of you that don't know what sticker shock is, so imagine you go into like a jewelry store, okay, and you're looking at watches, you're looking at like this Casio watch, and you look at the sticker and it says like 24K. You're like, whoa, okay, and then you put it down and you walk away, right? That's what sticker shock is. Now that essentially means that when you give up like a price or investment figure on a sales call to someone, they get sticker shock and immediately they panic. They're like, whoa, that's a lot of money, okay? Now normally that happens due to a lack of discovery, because obviously if you've done discovery right, I've obviously got a video on that on my channel, but if you've done discovery right, they're going to value the service, okay, because obviously you've dug into their problems, you've dug into the pain, you've dug into the desire and everything like that. Obviously I've got a video on my channel of basically like step by step how to run a sales call, but if you need more help with it, just click the link down below to book a call and I'll see how I can help. But back to this, they'll get sticker shock, okay? So what that means is they'll see the price, they'll be like, whoa, walls come up immediately and they're just like firing objections off at you, okay? So, oh yeah, sounds good, I just need to think about it. You don't, you're just shocked at the sticker shock, right? Now, that's number one, that's why it comes up, okay? Number two is lack of funds. Now, this is the worst part, because obviously it's frustrating. Like the number one thing you don't want to do is waste time on a sales call. That's why I'm very big on like pre-framing the call, discovery, qualification, and and everything like that. Because the last thing you want to do is get to the end of a sales call, give someone the investment figure, and they just cannot afford it. Okay, that's not what we want to do. Okay. Now there is one reason, other reason. So if my pen will work. So basically, the reason that comes up is they think about the investment through their old way of thinking. So let's say, for instance, I do high ticket sales, business to business. Okay, so let's just say, for instance, we've got a coach who is scarce with their money. They're stuck where they are now. They don't invest. They're stuck in the same sort of cycle of not progressing the business, of not moving things forward. You might be like that. And their way of thinking right now is that they need to hoard as much cash as they can, don't invest because it's not a good time, stuff like that. Now, when they get to the end of the call and you give them the price, and you just drop the price in there, their immediate old way of thinking comes in, and they're like, right, I don't need this, blah, 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 and they'll just obviously say, I need to think about it, okay? Now, what we can do is we can actually challenge that belief and challenge their old way of thinking. And obviously from discovery, let me just write that down. From discovery, you would have built up this, it's called an identity frame, right? So let's just say, for instance, they want to get to 5, 6, 10K a month, 50K a month. They need to act a certain way. So what we need to do is obviously in the discovery phase, this can go for fat loss as well. In the discovery phase, get them to tell us and paint us a picture of what the type of person that they want to be like would be like. How would they act? How would they think? What would their behaviors be? What would their daily actions be? And then we can use that as a point of reference when they go back into old ways of thinking. Okay, I did this the other day. Okay, it is the 3rd of June. 2 days ago, I was on a train. I was on a train home from staying at my partner's, right? So I was on a train home, and on the train, I had a guy who I let get off the sales call. I'll go into that on another day. He needed to think about it, and truth be told, it was a fear of failure objection, right? So anyway, so I messaged him, hey, I sent him the payment link, said, oh, hey, did you sort the payment link out? And he was, I just can't bring myself to do it. Okay. And what I did was, on the call that I had with him, he wanted to be earning 6, 7, 8, 9, 10K a month, living in Thailand, working from his laptop, obviously with no financial worries, right? I'm not going to get into it now. I can't tell you about this guy, but that's what his goal was. So what I essentially did was, I said, right, if we were to be that person 6 months down the line when you're doing, the things that you're doing, what would that person do in this scenario? Okay. And on the contrary, what path leads us to being that person? Is it doing current behavior that's obviously kept them now in where they are now? Or is it new behavior which is going to get them to where they want to be? And that's like a very binary way to handle sort of the old way of thinking that comes up when someone needs to think about it. Because what will happen is they'll have the sticker shock. Normally the sticker shock leads to the old way of thinking. The lack of funds is just something that either happens or doesn't happen. Okay, they either have the funds or they don't. Obviously they can get access to funds. But anyway, so what will happen is you'll give them the price. They'll need to think about it because of sticker shock, and then they'll go into their old ways of thinking. Oh, I don't need this, blah 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 blah. And whilst I'm on that, I need to think about it, and I need to talk to my partner. Same objection. They're both smoke screens. Okay. And obviously, like I've been over, a smoke screen is something that someone will say to prevent you from finding out the real objection. Okay. Now, in terms of prevention, right. Okay. Now, I feel like prevention and cutting off the exits are two different, I'd probably say the same thing, right? So there is one trick that I like to do on a sales call that is so easy, but limits so many objections. Okay. Now it's called the triple bind. Okay. Now what a bind is, tie down, they're called different things, but what a tie down is it's getting someone to hold and give you their word. Okay, now what do I mean by that? So let's just take, I'll just go into the triple bind for example. When I get to the end of a sales call, this could be a B2B sales call, it could be selling for me, it could be selling for someone else, right? It could be closing for someone else. I get to the end of the sales call, I go through the whole, pitch process, whatever. And then I get to the triple bind. Now this is responsible for limiting basically every single objection ever except financial related objections, okay? Now, what this bind consists of is it consists of me getting that person to tell me if and why something will help them. And by extension, them telling me that will lead to them telling themselves in their subconscious and their conscious mind of why this would actually help. Okay, so in regards to actually using a triple bind, there's 3 questions, okay? 1, 2, and 3, that's why it's called a triple bind, okay? So the first thing is help, right? So it goes help, why, ASAP. My pen is running out, so I need to get a new one ASAP, okay. So I want you to ask this at the end of the next sales call. So get to the end of your next sales call, go through the pitch, and then ask these 3 questions, because it will change the way that you handle any objection. Okay, so you get to the end of the pitch. You say to them, "Okay, John, wherever. Okay, John, do you have any questions, or do you feel like you've got any questions about anything I've been over today?" And they're like, "No." Like, "Okay, so everything makes sense to you, and everything like that?" "Yes, it does." "Okay, nice. So, yeah, I mean, the most important thing for me, and we don't just take anyone on, just who's willing to obviously invest. I want to make sure that this aligns. So do you feel like this program, whatever program you have, do you feel like it's going to get you to, and then you can obviously reference where they want to get to. Do you feel like it's going to get you to being 10 stone or whatever? You get the gist. So always reference the outcome, right? Do you feel like it's going to get you to, reference outcome? Okay? And then they're either going to say yes, no. Well, they shouldn't say no, really. They're either going to say yes, or they're going to say, I think so. Okay, so, right, yes, I think so. Now, if someone gives you any level of uncertainty, right, if someone says, or probably, or something, it's either fuck yes or fuck no, right? Apply that sort of mentality. So, if someone says to you, oh yeah, I think it probably would, alarm bells ringing straight away there, okay? And you need to, that means that there's uncertainty there. So what you need to do is address that uncertainty, okay? So what you need to say is, let's say they say, oh yeah, I think so. Be like, okay. I mean, if you don't mind me saying this, you don't sound like too sure. So on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being I'm certain, 1 being no, not a chance, where would you say you are in terms of certainty on this program getting you to X, Y, and Z? Okay, let's say for instance they say 7, right? You can say, okay, yeah, I mean, why not a 4? And alternatively, why not a 9 or a 10? Now, they're not going to really answer you about the 4 because it doesn't really make sense. But they will. You can say to them, okay, so how come you're not a 10 out of 10? What would make you a 10 out of 10? What would give you 10 out of 10 confidence or certainty that this program will help you do X, Y, and Z? And they're going to give you a micro objection, a hurdle, a micro objection, and they're going to tell you something that they're unsure about. Okay, so it could be, I've tried things in the past and it hasn't worked. Okay, so you need to handle that. A super quick handle for that is okay, right, okay, nice. And obviously, what did you say you tried again? Oh, okay, I tried Slimming World Weight Watchers. Okay, right. So would you agree that obviously we've been over in the call that those weren't sustainable for you and everything like that? And then you can be like, okay, do you feel like this would be more sustainable for you? And okay, why? And then just get them to basically tell themselves why it would work for them. So that's just a little handle on the sort of uncertainty. But they need to say yes, they will. They need to be 10 out of 10 confident that this will help them, okay? Because if you move on past that and they're still uncertain, you're not going to close, okay? Because there's still some level of uncertainty there which we haven't handled, okay? So that's the first tie down covered. Now, the reason that we do this is to get certainty. Okay? Now, the reason that this limits the I need to think about it objection is because they literally have told us yes, it's going to get me to where I want to be. Okay, which takes away about 60% of the I need to think about objection, because an I need to think about objection can either be like fear that they'd fail, but it's like, right, they've literally told us that they cannot fail going through this, or they won't fail because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, obviously then it's just the money side of things. So number one, would it help? Okay, we've got that nailed down. They've said yes, it most definitely would help. And then what we want to do is we want to ask them why. Okay, and the reason that we do that is so that we can get the prospect to close themselves, which is pretty what we all want. What that looks like is you say, okay, no, amazing. I'm glad that you feel like this would be like, this would, you're 10 out of 10 certain that this would help you get towards your goals. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, why do you feel like that? What they're going to tell you here is they're going to sell themselves, but they're going to tell you the most helpful parts of the program. So it could be, my pen has run out. That is fantastic. Okay, so it could be the guidance. So what they're going to do is they're going to tell you what about the program they feel like is going to really help them, which is going to get them to sell themselves and tell you how to sell them, if that makes sense. So, you're selling a fat loss offer, you could say, okay, what about this program do you feel like would really help you lose weight? And they're like, oh, I think the accountability and the guidance and the support and everything like that would be the most helpful. Be like, oh, okay. I'm guessing you feel like that's something that's obviously like really important to you, and you feel like without that you don't feel like you're going to get anywhere. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I feel like that. Okay. Awesome. So that's just a little trick to get them to sort of sell themselves. Okay. And then moving on to the last tie down is I don't really know what to call this. This basically limits any timing / logistic objections, and it's the ASAP start question, right? So it's really important that we say, finances aside, so I always lead with that. So I always go, finances aside, do you feel like this is something that you would want to basically, start straight away, or like, are you going away tomorrow? Something like that. Now, the reason you say that, I just make a joke out of the situation, but the reason that you actually say that is because you want them to basically tell you, oh, I would start straight away. Because this prevents them from turning around to you and saying, once you drop the price, oh, I can't start now because of this. You can be like, well, you told me, bosh, okay? Now, the whole reason that we even ask these questions in the first place is to say to the prospect, well, I say, for instance, they give you, I need to think of objection. Or the whole reason that we actually ask these questions is so we can reference and be like, well, you told me earlier on, and that will hold them to their word. Okay, and as humans, we like to be held to our word. So as a person, whenever you tell someone that you want to do something, or whenever you tell someone that you're going to do something, it adds pressure. Okay, it adds a bit of social pressure, a bit of internal pressure, but it adds pressure for you to do that thing. Okay, so let's say, for instance, if I told my friends, I told my videographer Iwan, I'm going to run 5K tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow comes around, and then Iwan comes back to me and asks me like, oh, how did the 5K go? Did you go? I am going to feel terrible if I say, oh, I just didn't go. And it's going to make me look weak, and it's going to make me not look like a worse off person, right? And people feel a slight sort of social pressure being held to their word. Okay, try it. I mean, try and next time you don't want to do something, like let's say, for instance, you say, I'm going to clean my apartment, right? Tell someone, today I am going to clean my apartment. By the end of today, my apartment will be cleaned. And I can guarantee you that you'll feel a bit of pressure, a bit of social pressure to clean your apartment, okay? It's the same thing in sales, right? People feel, I don't mean pressured in a bad way. They feel pressured to be held to their word, Okay, so the reason that we ask these questions is to get people's word. Okay, because that's what we want, and that's what we can use to leverage to obviously get that person across the line. So we use the triple bind. Okay, and what this essentially does is this cuts off, I've put an arrow through it, all the potential exits, or all the potential sort of like smoke screens or objections that someone can give. Okay, now essentially what this does, what the triple bind does, is it draws a line in the sand. Okay, so let's just say we've got the call, and then we've got the pitch, then we've got the close. I don't know if you can see that. You might have to just wait till I explain this. Okay, so, right. Okay, so, I don't even know if you can see that, but I'm going to assume that you can. So, if we look at the call as like a timeline, right? So we've got the call and the pitch on one timeline, or on this track. And then we use the triple bind. So if I just come down here, we use the triple bind. And essentially what that does is it draws a hard line in the sand. Now it draws a line in the sand to basically cut off any potential objections from coming up, right? So before the triple bind, we could have, the prospect could have a number of objections preloaded. You know, they could have logistics, they could have, is this going to work for me? Basically anything unrelated to financial objections, okay? So anything outside of I can't afford it, or I need to think about it, right? Now, adding in this triple bind draws a hard line in the sand, and it cuts off every single objection, bar financial objections, that could potentially come up, okay? Now, we use the triple bind, and then after that, we go straight into the close. Now, because of the way that we've asked the triple bind, the binding questions, any objection that we get beyond that point, beyond the answers to the 3 questions, is financial. Because of the way we've asked the questions. We've asked them, is this going to help you? They've given us 100% certainty that it would. Why would it help you? And would you want to start ASAP? Okay. Now, imagine, let me just paint a scenario, and this is going to sound quite silly, but imagine if someone said, you asked someone, you know, finances aside, I'm really sore because I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu yesterday, but obviously I needed to show up today and give you some sales call Jiu-Jitsu. Anyway, irrespective of the point, but let's say, for instance, someone tells you, you have a sales call with someone and you get to this point, just before this point, and you say, okay, like finances, I keep throwing my pen. Finances aside, do you feel like this is something that you want to start straight away? And you say, oh, are you going away tomorrow or next week or something? They're like, oh no, I've got nothing planned. I just want to get on with this ASAP so I can start working towards my goals, right? And you're like, okay, awesome. Let's just imagine for a second, they then tell you, after you drop the price, they're like, I forgot I'm going on holiday. They're lying to you, and they won't do that because you've literally asked. But the only thing that's changed between them saying I can start straight away and I need to wait or I need to delay this is the price. The only thing that's changed is the price. If we look at this from a scientific standpoint, the only variable that's been included is the price, the investment, wherever. I'm just going to call it price because it's just easier. But the only thing that's changed has been the price. You know, you've not changed the program, you've not changed anything else. You've just changed the price, and all of a sudden they're throwing up logistical objections. Now, the reason that I actually tell you that is because it illustrates the point that I need to think about it, or let's say they need to think about it, is solely a financial objection. Okay? There's no other reason that someone needs to think about it. Okay? There's no other reason, right? They don't need to think if they can fit this into their life. They don't need to think about any of that, especially if you've done the triple bind. This is why that is so powerful, because it obviously prevents those objections from even coming up in the first place. And if they do come up, then you can dig up their words, which is the next point. You can dig up their words in order to handle the objection. Okay, so we've gone through what it means. we've gone through the smoke screen. Okay, right, so I almost forgot. So in order for us to handle this objection, we need to get rid of the barrier. Okay, now what does that mean? So I need to think about it as just a barrier for a financial objection. Okay, so the first step in handling this, I mean, this isn't, I need to think about it, isn't really an objection. It's just a financial objection disguised as something else. So really we need to talk about handling financial objections. That's its own video because there's a lot of elements to handling I can't afford it objection. But I'll go into that in a separate video. But in order for us to start to handle that objection, the financial objection, we need to first get through the I need to think about it objection. Okay. So in order for us to get through that, what we need to do is get rid of the barrier. Now, this is where digging up their words becomes insanely powerful, okay? Because we can use their own words, we can dig up their own words and get rid of the barrier, okay? Now, what does that mean? So, let's just say, for instance, they say, oh, I need to think about it, right? After you drop the price. Now, what you can say to them is you can say, okay, I totally get that you want to think about it. Now, you can ask, oh, like, what particular area of this do you feel like you need to think about? And they might tell you something, right? But that might not work. So what you might want to do is say this. You'd be like, okay, I need to think about it. And then what you can do is you can use an assumption. So you'd be like, okay, like, what is it that you need to think about? Or I'm guessing you feel like you need to think about the service, or like, what is it that you feel like you need to think about? I like going with that once you've used the triple bind because it gives you a bit of a reference point to jump off. So what you can do is you can say, right, like, what does he need to think about? Or that's one way you can do it. Or you can do the other way where you go, okay, now a minute ago, see how I'm digging up their words? Now, a minute ago, you said, digging up their words, you said that, you know, the program was perfect for you. You felt like it was going to help you because of X, Y, and Z. And really, you wanted to get started as soon as possible. Now, really, the only thing that's changed between a minute ago and now is the price. So when you say that you need to think about it, I'm guessing it's more to do with the finances. And they're going to say yes. Yes, it is, because there's no other reason why it wouldn't be. You have successfully got rid of the barrier. Okay? Done. Now, that means that you can move on to handling the financial objection. I'm not going to go through that because this video would be like 2 hours long. But that's how we want to get rid of the barrier. So just to obviously like re-walk you through it. Step one, it means that they're trying to put off the decision and put something else in front of making the decision. So they're putting barriers to making the decision, which is a smoke screen. And they're also hiding the true objection from you. The reason it's a smoke screen is because of the triple bind and because of the fact that we can leverage the triple bind to basically make it out that it can only be a smoke screen. The reason it comes up, money, sticker shock, lack of funds, old way of thinking, which can be prevented through discovery. Then we've also got the fear of investing, fear of failure. Okay, I forgot to go over them, so I'm going to go over them now. But basically, fear of investing and fear of failure are the same thing, right? Because if someone knew that they were 100% guaranteed to, you know, achieve success through investing in this. Obviously, there's nothing in life that is guaranteed except for death and taxes, unless you live in Dubai, which I will next year. But you can't guarantee that. But what that essentially means is they might feel like a lack of belief on their part, okay? Which is important for you to obviously find out. So they might have a fear of investing, so they might have a fear of actually handing over the money, or they might have a fear of failure around about investing because they're scared that if they do this, they might not put the work in, which is something that we need to address, okay? I'm going to go into like fears and stuff like that, different things on a different video because I don't want to blow your head off with too much information in one vid, but we've gone through why it comes up, money and fear. We've gone through the prevention. This is the star of the show. The triple bind is the star of this show, right? If you're not doing the triple bind, then there's going to be there's going to be a bit of a shit time handling the objection, okay? So we want to use that. And honestly, when you start using this, I say honestly like I'm not honest all the time. Never say honestly in sales, but whatever. But when you start to use this, you'll notice your life becomes a lot easier. Okay, so then that allows us then to dig up their own words. Okay, so these two tie in. This is the key component to the whole process, the triple bind, because it really eliminates every sort of, they don't have a leg to stand on, right? Because they've told us that it'll help, why it'll help, and they want to start as soon as possible. So we can easily get rid of this objection and get on to the actual objection, because trying to handle two objections at the same time, obviously I'll move on to this in a minute, but you want to isolate the objection. So the true objection here isn't the anything about it, it's the finances and whatever part of the finances that may be, okay? Now, let's move on to the key component to handle any objection. Can you guess what it is? Now, I want you to put it in the comment section what you feel like it is. And I don't want you to just skip to finding out what it is. But the key component to any objection is discovery. Okay, now, the reason that objections come up in the first place is because of a lack of discovery and a lack of value perception, right? Because, let me tell you this. If I say, pretend this is a knife and I came up and I stabbed you in the neck, right? I stabbed you in the neck and the life-saving surgery was $6,000 or £6,000, right? You're not going to need to think about that because the problem is so severe, the pain is so severe, the urgency, the consequences are so severe, you do not need to think about it. Now, I need to think about it comes up because of the opposite of that. So the pain isn't large enough, the problem isn't deep enough, the consequences aren't large enough, and there's no real urgency to act. Now, the way that you actually get through all of them is through discovery, because if you are not doing discovery right on a sales call, you are going to get objections, right? You're going to get, I need to think about it, I need to ask my partner, I need to check my finances, can I start next week, right? You're going to get so many objections and hurdles and smoke screens due to your lack of discovery, okay? Now, the key component to handle any objection is two things. So we've got isolation. I should say key components because there's more than one. Okay, so there's three components to handle any objection, okay? So before this even comes up, so before the objection even comes up, it's discovery, okay? Now, the worst, if you don't do good enough discovery, you can forget about handling objections because the value proposition isn't going to be there, the value perception isn't going to be there, the problems aren't going to be there, the consequences aren't going to be there, the urgency isn't going to be there, the emotional buy-in isn't going to be there, and you're just going to have a shit time handling objections. So focus less on handling objections like everyone is taught and focus more on doing the actual damn discovery because that is going to change your life. Okay, doing more discovery on a sales call is going to really improve your likelihood of closing. So that's the first thing. So this is first, doing the discovery, because without that you don't have the emotional weapons or the actual leverage you need to overcome objections. So then we move on to isolation. Okay, now that just basically means isolating the objection. Is this the only reason that you don't want to move forward today, or is this the only reason why you're not starting this straight away? That basically limits every other objection from coming up. So let's just say, for instance, they say I need to think about it, right? And be like, okay, so I'm guessing you feel like everything's good for you, but you just need to think about it and there's no other reason why you wouldn't sort of want to do this. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Then what we need to do is obviously get to the root of this, which is going to be the financial objection, and then obviously isolate the financial objection. So you can say something like, okay, I'm guessing you feel like everything's right for you, but it's just the sort of the financial side of it is holding you back, right? Or I'm guessing not being able to afford it is holding you back. So that's why you want to isolate. So once we've done that, we can take that off. Then we want to move on to referencing. Now, when it comes to referencing, you want to reference two things. You want to reference their answers to the triple bind, right? So this, and you want to reference their answers to the discovery, right? So let's just say, for instance, we do you know what a really popular one is? Oh, I need to think about it because I don't make decisions on the spot. I'm just going to give you a little trick. I mean, if you want to know how to handle this objection at length, obviously the link is below for you to check out my academy, and I'll help you out there. But just a quick one, I'll give you this one, no problem at all. So let's just say, for instance, someone says, oh, I need to think about it because I don't make decisions on the spot. And let's just say, for instance, you've done discovery, right? And you find out this person wants to become a different person, you know, they want to earn more money and stuff like that. What you can do is you can reference the discovery and then handle the objection. So what that would look like is, let's just say, for instance, they say, oh, I don't make decisions on the spot. I like to think things through. I'd be like, okay, yeah, you know, if you don't mind me saying this, would it be fair to assume that the reason that we're in X, Y, and Z problem position is because of the actions and the thoughts that we've had, and the action that we've taken on the thoughts up to this point? And they're like, yeah. I'd be like, okay, so would it be fair to assume that in order for us to get to the goals that you've obviously told me, your behaviors and your actions need to change? Yes, they would. Okay, now you mentioned that you don't make decisions on the spot and everything like that, which, you know, is completely fair, but would it be fair to say that that's the reason that you're here right now, because you're not decisive and you're not taking action quick enough? Would that be fair? Yes, it would. Okay, nice. Now you mentioned to me, so we're not forcing them, we're literally referencing what they've said. You mentioned to me that you want to become X, Y, and Z person who's doing X, Y, and Z thing. Is that still true? Like, do you still want to become that person? Yes, I do. Okay. Okay, nice. Now, in order for us to get to that position, in order for you to become that person, what do you feel like needs to change? Do you feel as if you need to change your behaviors, your thoughts, and your habits? Yes. Okay. And what sort of behaviors and decisions does that person have? Do they act with speed and be decisive? Or do they act like a snail and be like, oh, I need to think about it, I need to, I don't make decisions quickly, and ultimately take time to make decisions, which ultimately doesn't help. It's information that does. Yeah, they act decisively. Okay, so yeah, which person are you choosing to be today? Are you choosing to be the person that is decisive, does act quickly, does get things done with speed, is in the position of, X, Y, and Z, wherever their outcome is? Or are you going to be the person that is, oh, I don't know, and, continue as you are, which obviously you've told me leads to you being X, Y, and Z consequence? Which one do you feel like you want to be? Oh, I want to be that person. It's a binary decision, that is. They're not going to actively say, oh, I want to become the person that's less successful. They will never say that. It's going to become a binary decision. And they're going to say, okay, I want to become that person. Oh, okay, but like, why do you actually want to become that person? Like, what is it about being that person that you feel like you need? Oh, I need to have the financial stability, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, whatever the goals are with that person. Okay, nice. So with that in mind then, like, where do you feel like we should go from here? What would that person that you're going to be do right now? Would they invest and actually get started? Or would they not invest? Would they, put the decision off and ultimately stay in the same boat? Oh, they'd invest and do it. Okay, so what decision do you feel like needs to be made right now? I need to actually do it. Okay, bang, closed. Yeah, so that's basically how you can handle that sort of decision. That's identity framing again, which I'll go into on a separate video. But yeah, like I said, discovery is so important, both in the DMs and on the actual sales call. And like I said, if you want to handle it, just click the link below to book a call. But yeah, discovery is so key, because that is what gives you all the ammunition that you need in order to handle, not only this objection, but any objection at all. So really prioritize discovery first. I've actually got a video on my channel about discovery and about how to actually use the discovery frameworks on a sales call to get more emotional leverage. So that's on my channel, or I can just link it to this video and you can go and watch that next.